Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit to right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Poppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything's possible!
And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Kicking with Kruse. I am your host, as always, Ben Kruse. Hope you guys are having a good Monday evening. It's wherever you guys are coming from. And we got a lot of stuff to get into on the episode for tonight. I did not do one last week, so I do apologize for those that were hoping for me to do one last week. I wasn't able to get to one. I was able to do actually a Patriots preview show in lieu of it with my co-host Isaiah Leon before the Patriots took on the Jets this past Thursday. So we'll get into a lot of stuff specifically on tonight's show. We will break down week 3 in the NFL. We'll kind of really get into the overall early glimpse of how the season so far has looked. My impressions, some teams that have looked off to a really good start and some teams that haven't, and maybe some stuff in the middle. We're also into the last week of the MLB baseball season. So we're going to talk about everything specifically in the wild race of things, wild card specifically of both divisions, of both leagues, as well as some teams that already clinched to get into the big dance, and then some teams already outside looking in. And then if we have more time, we will do some other sports as well to talk about. But I think primarily tonight it's going to be mostly NFL and MLB. So before we get into all of that, I do want to obviously have a quick reminder for you guys right down here on the ticker option. If you guys like what you're seeing for tonight's program, follow us on the MI6 and the IM6 network on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Unfortunately, I don't have my stuff being able to be uploaded onto Facebook. They have something personally going on over there, and I have to figure something out with that. But make sure, guys, if you guys want to take a look at this overall show, I have it's going to be published on YouTube on MI6 and the IM6 Sports Network. You guys can also take a look at my Twitter at BenCruz144, right down here in the ticker bar, all lowercase, all in one word. If you guys want to, feel free to give me a message. You want to become a guest at one point throughout, feel free. I'm pretty much open to a lot of stuff, and pretty much it's a come and go type of show, as usual. So, I don't know if I'll have any of my guests on for tonight, many of my co-hosts, but if not, then I'll go solo, and that's totally fine with me. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to start with the NFL, and we are going to basically recap week 3 in the league. So there was 2 games that just finished tonight in the Monday night slate, the Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. We'll get into those in a little bit, but I did obviously want to quickly go through some of the finals from week 3. And I'll first start with my Patriots. So I'll kind of do a little team report because, funny enough, they were actually the first team to play in week 3. The Patriots obviously were coming off of a really tough loss in week 2 against Seattle. That happened in overtime. I really liked the way that the Patriots have played so far in the first 2 weeks going into week 3. However, it wasn't so great on Thursday against the Jets on both sides of the ball. Offensive line, they were without their left tackle, Darian Lowe, and left guard City. So that seems like he's going to be on track to practice. He practiced back today, City. So that is a welcome sight for a Patriots line that is really, really struggling to get stuff going. And Yeah, they just the New York Jets. You got to give credit where credit's due. It was their home opener, the first game back for Aaron Rodgers, and they just really took it to this Patriots defense. Patriots were awful tackling wise. They had really bad pursuits, um, and pretty much right from the get to the end, it was all the Jets. Um, no if ends or buts. Jacoby Brissett, he didn't turn the ball over, but he continues to just be extremely limited for what he's been bringing with a really awful offensive line. He was just 12 of 18 for 98 yards. So obviously that's just not going to get the job done. Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson to the running game. Obviously the Jets running game, they were without CJ Mosley and a couple other guys, but that didn't really affect them. The Jets had a really hard time the first couple of weeks stopping the run. They were able to really figure things out in this game against the Patriots. Receiving wise, Demario Douglas, who was really quiet for the first couple of weeks, he was able to come back onto the scene in this one and basically really kind of like give the Patriots whatever type of offense, if you want to call any type of offense. He had a decent night. He was 7 catches for 69 yards, 9.9 yards per catch. A lot of that stuff basically rose in garbage time, but it's really good to see Pop get in action because I know that he was really clamoring for some targets coming into the third week of the season. Austin Hooper, Jalen Polk, Hunter Henry, Antonio Gibson, Kayshon Boutte all had it at least a catch for the Patriots team, but it was really the defense. The defense, who's been really a kind of a strong, start to the team and what pretty much should be their backbone, just really was not good. And they gave a ton of points last week to Seattle's offense with a very dynamic team over there with Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks are looking really good so far. So I don't know if it's just them or it's just the way that also the Jets have looked. With Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers went 27 to 35, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Patriots, I think, for the most part, were able to contain the rushing attack. Breece Hall only had 54 yards rushing, 3.4 yards per attempt. He did have a touchdown. It was like a 10-yard touchdown run. But really overall, I mean, it was really Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he really just tore apart the Patriots defense. Anything specifically the Patriots were giving him, whether it was a blitz coverage, whether it was him scrambling out. I mean, this looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers, at least for this week. So some of it you just got to tip your cap to Rodgers and that Jets team. I mean, just looking kind of quickly at the overall, team stats. The third down efficiencies was completely one-sided. That pretty much was the overall deciding impact of the game. The Jets went 10 of 15 on third downs. The Patriots went 2 of 11. The Jets had 27 first downs, and the Patriots had 11. So it was completely one-sided when you look at it overall. The Jets were able to execute more at a higher level. They had 400 yards total yards. The Patriots only had 139 passing yards. It was 267 to 61. And then rushing yards. It was just completely one-sided from this whole entire game. And the time of possession, 40 minutes and 4 seconds to 19 minutes and 56 seconds. So about 20 minutes of a massive difference. That's very just what you never see from the Patriots type of teams in past years, including typically against the New York Jets. So that was the overall final in terms of it. It was 24-3. It was the final score. Completely just one side. A game you just want to kind of move on from, get back to the drawing board if you're a Patriots fan, including myself. So this was also the first time that the New York Jets have defeated the New England Patriots since 2015 at MetLife Stadium, or the Meadowlands in that case. So, I mean, for Jet fans out there, I tip my cap. You guys have been through a hell lot of suffering, definitely a lot more than I have. And, I don't like the Jets, but I also am a realist. I mean, I really hope that Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. I hope that he gives you guys a really good overall season. And if, he stays healthy, I don't see a reason why he and that Jets team cannot be in the playoffs. I think they have a really good shot to. I mean, the Bills have looked really, really good. We're also going to talk about the Dolphins situation because obviously they have a really unfortunate situation over there. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So the Jets are definitely going to be a team to watch for the remainder of the year. They also have the Patriots again down the road. Of course, they play them twice because they're in division. So we'll see in terms of how that goes over in Foxborough. But at least for the first game against the two teams, it was all in favor of the Jets. All right, so that was the first game of week 3. Now we're going to get into the Sunday slate. And I will say, there was a ton of wows in it, tons of, not surprising types of stuff. But I will say this, the New York Giants, the Carolina Panthers, they both looked completely out of it in the first 2 weeks. I mean, they were awful. They look completely, what. And I mean, I wouldn't say that they're clearly back just yet. But, when you're 0-2 to at least start the season, you need to get yourself a win anyway, anyhow. And they played the Browns yesterday. And I'm going to say this about the Browns. They do not look good. Deshaun Watson completely looks like a shell of himself. This was a guy that was like 7-8 years ago looked at as one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the future with Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow, and a lot of guys. Down there, Deshaun Watson, he was a first overall pick in Clemson, and then the first couple of years of the Texans. I mean, this guy was incredible. He was a freak of nature. And then the scandal stuff happened off the field. The Browns paid him in terms of the overall trade. They gave him a ton of haul for him. So it was something where they were banking on him to really be their future. And he doesn't have the same accuracy. The offensive line is atrocious. Now, I do know that Jedrick Wills, Wyatt Teller, some of their line is banged up. And, looks like Wyatt Teller is going to be out for a couple weeks. And that back end, the back end of the Browns defense is good, but they're really struggling against the pass. At least Daniel Jones, a guy that specifically Giant fans hated. I mean, he still has a lot of work to do specifically to earn that option. But Daniel Jones, you got to give where credit's due. You got to give him his flowers. And, he had a hell of a game. He went 24 of 34, 236, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He was close to throwing a pick at one point. But all in all, I thought Daniel Jones actually played really, really well. I did watch a lot of this game at my place, and he looked really, really good. He looked crisp. He had really, really good decision-making, which is something he's really struggled with in the past. And I think that Malik Neighbors has really, really transformed him into his confidence. When you bring a first-round overall pick with a ton of ability, he's a freak of nature. It does wonders. And we saw that in this game. Neighbors was the leading reception guy. He had 8 catches, 78 yards, 9.8 yards average catch, and he had 2 scores. Second closest to Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a really good game last week as well against Washington. Neighbors actually also had a touchdown last week as well, too. So the Giants, it really didn't come down to their offense because the Giants' offense was able to score in the second week. They had 18 points, which isn't a lot, but they only had 6 points in week 1. So the Giants offense, had a really slow start in week 1, but they've really kind of worked things up. And the first week they faced against the Vikings, and the Vikings are 3-0 right now. And you got to give a lot of credit to where credit's due because that defense, I don't think a lot of people give enough credit to where that defense is. But Brian Flores, so far, former Patriot coach, who would have thought from the Belichick tree, has completely stymied, I want to say that, disrupted, I'd say, at least Brock Purdy, who essentially credited Flores after the game, saying that, Game plan is absolutely crazy. And then the Texans on Sunday. The Texans scored 7 points against the Vikings. And this is with CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, who just came in, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. That's crazy. And when you talk about talent, and the Vikings defense with Flores has been absolutely incredible. So part of it was with the Giants, obviously. I guess the Vikings are just playing really, really well at the highest level defensively in the first couple of weeks, in which they are. I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain it. But you can see specifically, the next couple of games here with the Giants is they're starting to at least get some execution in the offense. And then, I'm not saying the Giants are going to have an overall great year, but if they can get something out of Daniel Jones this year, I mean, I think it's a really good sign overall because, you need to have Daniel Jones to have a solid year if you're a Giant fan, or else you're going to be kicking yourself and kind of see in terms of what's going to figure out down the road there. Devin Singletary in the backfield did have a touchdown. But, like I was talking about Deshaun Watson, the Browns. Watson did go 21 of 37, 196 yards, and two touchdowns, no interceptions. So it's not, when you look at the overall score sheet, right, that doesn't look like it's a bad overall line. But the Browns as a whole, like I mentioned, they're in a funk massively. I know they obviously won against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville has not won a game yet. They're looking absolutely abysmal, and we'll talk about them because they, did not show up tonight against Buffalo. But that was that final. Giants won by the final of 21 to sorry about that, guys. Giants beat the Browns. I'll get that score back to you guys in a quick sec, but I'm gonna go through the rest of these games here while I'm going through that. The Saints fell to the Eagles at the Superdome. That was a really good game. No, I wouldn't say great, but it was a game definitely for sure back and forth to the end. Offensively, the Eagles, it's going to be something to watch out for. Something's not right there. They did lose Devontae Smith, one of the top guys. AJ Brown's still been out for the next couple of weeks here. And Nick Sirianni is just, he's ballsy, but, there's a lot of scrutiny so far. It's Nick Sirianni. And if he doesn't get that Eagles team right, there's going to be a ton of question marks because there's obviously a lot of potential tension, and I think that there's going to be something to watch out for, if you're an Eagles fan, to watch for with that team. Because, obviously they had a good one in this one, but, I still have some questions with them. But good one for Philly. Like I mentioned before about the Texans and the Vikings won by the final 34-7. Sam Darnold has been impressive so far. He is just playing with a lot of precision. CJ Stroud had a little bit of a slow one in this game Sunday. He did have 215 yards passing, but he had 2 picks. And so, the Vikings defense really did a good job on him. Darnold went 17-28, 101 yards, total yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Sam Darnold, so far so good. And obviously, when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, at the receiver, that also helps you as well too. So, all right, here we keep on continuing here. The Lions defeated the I won't do the Lions game just yet. We'll do the Titans game. The Titans defeated the I'm sorry. Bear with me, guys. It's 11:45 at night. Trying to get my mind backing up straight here. The Packers defeated the Titans on Sunday. The Titans are looking like a mess. Will Levis has not been playing well at all. Threw another pick in this one. He's had really, really bad in-game situation with making a lot of turnovers. I obviously know that he is young, but a lot of people are wondering, is he going to be the guy? They brought in Calvin Ridley. They brought some pieces in, and it still has not looked good. Defensively, they do not look great. The Packers, without Jordan Love, got to give some props here. Malik Willis has won the 2 games that they just came in. They're kind of game planning with Matt LaFleur with Malik Willis' skill set, and he is looking really, really good over there with the Packers. They're pretty much kind of solidifying in terms of simplifying his overall offense, but they're just executing at a really, really high level right now. So the Packers get another one here. The Denver Broncos and Bo Nix, they get into the win column as well. They defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs have their first loss of the season. They let down in this one. I personally picked the Buccaneers to win, but the Broncos had some other plans. Bo Nix was really, really effective in this one, even though he didn't throw a touchdown or a pick. But the running game, Javonte Williams, McClellan, they ran really, really well, and they scored 26 points in this one. So that was the final, 26-7, Broncos. Bears Colts, final score there, 21-16, Colts over the Bears. The Colts finally get on the winning ways there. The Steelers go to 3-0 as they defeat the Los Angeles Chargers 20-10. The Steelers played Justin Fields still, as Russell Wilson is still nursing from the injury, and Justin Herbert led the game in the second half. We don't know if he's going to be playing next week against the Chiefs. Hopefully he is, because I would not want to see Taylor Heineke play against the Chiefs next week whatsoever. But got to give props to the Steelers. I don't think a lot of people expected them to do much this year, but so far they've been really, really good, and Mike Tomlin continues to be one of the best coaches in the league for a reason. The Seattle Seahawks defeated the Miami Dolphins 24-3. Obviously, the Dolphins are going to be without Tua for a couple weeks, and who knows about for his future. For those that don't know about Tua, he got hit last week against the Buffalo Bills in the head. He has another concussion. This is, I think, his 3rd or 4th now. I know people are saying he should have slid, but essentially, if you're the quarterback and you're essentially sliding, right, the timing specifically of the slide, I think it's more of the play and the heat of the moment that he essentially didn't. He should have obviously slid right before the contact was being played, but sometimes it's just an overall mind in terms of when you should go and slide, and regardless of the situation, you just never want to see him go down ever. You just don't want to see injuries ever in person. But for a guy that's just really had a hard time being able to stay on the field consistently, and he's just an overall great person, it seems like. He's the overall family, football overall minded. Obviously his brother plays still. So, it really, really sucks for the Tagovailoa family, and just wish him obviously well in terms of recovery. If I was Tua Tagovailoa, I want to play football anymore. Just because when you have that amount of concussions, eventually you have to kind of take away the game that you love and to worry about your personal well-being. Sports can obviously you can obviously come back and play if you feel that it's right. But I think at least if you want to take the rest of the season off, or maybe take a year off and kind of rethink things, for the amount of concussions, man, that he has been putting onto his body, you just never want to keep on making it worse and worse and worse, because you just don't want to have some other type of effects that might come into play outside of football. So regardless, obviously the Dolphins are taking a massive hit down with quarterback, and Skylar Thompson played in his first game back. Obviously last year Tua went down. Was it last year? I think Thompson maybe played a little bit, but I know in the past Skylar Thompson played a couple years ago, I remember, in the wildcard game against the Bills. So he has some experience. He's obviously not the same guy that Tua is, but he came in. I wasn't expecting the Dolphins to win this one, but I also didn't expect them not to show up. Seattle's obviously looking really, really good so far. Geno Smith has been playing really, really well, and they keep on winning. at least so far. Mike McDonald, that Seahawks team is looking really, really good. And the Dolphins, Skylar Thompson left the game on Sunday. And, we'll see specifically if he's going to be back for next week. How about the Panthers? The Panthers get into the winning form. Andy Dalton started in this one. Bryce Young is currently on the bench. So a lot of people are kind of speculating on what is next for Bryce Young's future in the Carolina Panthers. But at least in this one, it was all Carolina. They put up 36 points on the Raiders team. And, the Panthers obviously are a team that might be in route of the number 1 or number 2 overall pick. But, this team obviously looked absolutely horrific in the first 2 games. The Raiders team just came off of a really impressive win against the Baltimore Ravens. So you would think that the Raiders, they're at home against a team that hasn't been playing well whatsoever the first couple of weeks, would come out on top. But the Panthers had some other thoughts, and Andy Dalton was the reason why. He went 26 of 37, 319 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And with that overall performance from Andy, well, he gets an overall award for going to be able to play his former team in the Cincinnati Bengals next week in Carolina. Now we're going to go to the 4 o'clock slot games. The Baltimore Ravens finally get on the winning ways after the first 2 weeks and really tough defeats. They defeat the Dallas Cowboys with a final score of 28-25. Lamar Jackson won 12-15, 182 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry was a big one of the game, player of the game, really. 25 carries, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. For those people that thought that Derrick Henry was washed, didn't have enough in him, he is proven otherwise. Obviously, love the fit kind of from the start with him in Baltimore. I think it's going to be a really scary sight when things get going with them. But they defeat the Dallas Cowboys, like I mentioned, 28-25. Dallas has had a pretty slow start to the year. They're 1-2. Defensively, they've been getting up a ton, especially at home. I know that obviously the first week they play the Browns, and you could say what you want, but the Browns have not looked good for the first 3 weeks. So Dallas obviously has played 2 teams at least so far that look really, really. I mean, I guess Baltimore obviously the first 2 weeks, they didn't look great, but they needed to win massively, and you kind of can know in terms of what the Baltimore offense can really bring when they're cooking. That's what they did on Sunday. And Mark Andrews really has not gotten involved yet. So once he gets involved, it could be really, really scary for other defenses to start kind of maintaining that offense. But Dallas, they getting off to really, really tough starts in these games. They've been falling behind. They're more of a team that likes to play ahead a lot. I know a lot of teams do. But Dallas has a really, really hard time winning games when they're really far behind, and that's what they've been having to do in these last couple. So that's where they are. They are 1-2 in these first 3 games. So kind of some cause for concern there. The Detroit Lions, they're 2-1. Jared Goff had a pretty solid one. I know they threw a pick, but he went 18-23, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kyler Murray went 21 of 34, 207 yards, a touchdown and a pick. The Lions are going to be just a fun overall team this year. And, they obviously just have a really ton of great pieces. I think really personally, they're going to be battling for between them and the Packers. They're going to be really battling for that overall division. Detroit, I think, too, just they really upgraded their cornerback position a lot. They just have a lot more speed. They just have a lot more playmakers on that defensive side. So they're just really complementary. This is a team specifically in Detroit that's just been bad for so long, and just they've never had a complementary type of team. So I think it feels good for that Detroit team itself, but obviously the fans to kind of just see kind of how it feels to have just an overall great, competent team. So they're going to be really, really fun under Dan Campbell for years to come. And I think they're going to just have another great season this year. So they're 2-1. The Cardinals, they're 1-2, but they've been tight in all of these games. So you also have to give them some credit despite the loss. All right. Let's see. Did I miss? Oh, yes. How about the Rams coming back from a tough deficit, a 2-3 score deficit against San Francisco 49ers? in LA. Now, both teams are battling with a ton of injuries right now. The Niners are massively injury, um, bound. They have some injury news today that they reported, but during the game they were without Christian McCaffrey, who honestly at this point, with the news that I've been hearing, he might miss, if not half the season, maybe even a quarter more of half the season, but the whole entire season. I mean, there's just not been a lot of great news with the McCaffrey situation at all. You obviously want him playing at his best, because when he's playing at his best, he's arguably the best player in football. So that's obviously really tough, of course, to start. Deebo Samuel is going to be out for a couple weeks, so obviously that's another big part, another weapon to Brock Purdy's offense. And then we found out today that Javon Hargraves, one of the better defensive linemen, a game changer, is going to be out for the season with torn pecs. So that's just a massive blow. Brock Purdy, the quarterback, he is day to day. He has some neck tightness or neck stiffness, something regarding with his neck. So that's not good. Regardless if he's going to be playing or not, he should be able to play against my Patriots on Sunday. At least I hope. But regardless of the fact, the Rams were also depleted. Cooper Kupp didn't play. Puka Nacua also didn't play. I remember. There's so many guys on both sides, receiving wise, some guys in the running game, defensively. But for a fact that regardless of how many guys are going to be out there and how many guys aren't, it's obviously going to be a great competitive game between both of those teams. And Brock Purdy, regardless of a lot of the guys that he was out with, had a really, really good game still. 22 of 30, 292 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Juwan Jennings, he had a couple touchdowns in this one. Jordan Mason, 19 carries, 77 yards. Not too bad, but obviously kind of the outlier from how week one went when Jordan Mason completely ran all over the New York Jets defense. And then the Rams, they got their first win of the season after first 2 losses, so the Rams are now in the win column. Matt Stafford went 16 to 25, 221 yards passing, a touchdown, so not too bad for Matt. And the star of this game was Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams had a touchdown catch. He only had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 24 carries, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And I will say this about the Niners: they could be. I wouldn't say they're in trouble, but at the same time, they could be. Because they just have so many guys currently banged up. Kittle being down, and McCaffrey being down, and Deebo being down, and you have your quarterback obviously dealing with a little bit. Hargraves is obviously out for the year. Their secondary is giving up a ton. It's I want to say time to panic just yet for the Niners. I mean, obviously the Patriots are playing on Sunday against them. As a Patriot fan, even if a double depleted type of team, even a depleted team is double the amount of talent really than what the Patriots have right now. So if they can't beat us, and I would love to see it. I for sure would love to see it for the Patriots to go across the country and to upset, because like I said, I think the Patriots right now are 10.5-point underdogs for like the first time in forever. The Patriots be, in terms of a spread, how much of the spread line they've been against. So that's definitely something. But I mean, the Niners had this one in the bag and they completely choked this away. So that's obviously a really tough one to do, if you're not a fan. But obviously they can come back and try to respond in the next one against the Patriots. Then Sunday Night Football, Kansas City Chiefs, Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons obviously are coming off their improbable win against the Philadelphia Eagles in Monday Night Football last week. And the Chiefs are obviously, they had the first 2 games. The first one was against the Ravens, and the second one was against the Bengals. And this was the first away game for the Chiefs. It went back and forth, and Patrick Mahomes 26-39, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Pacheco obviously is going to be out with them for a while, And Travis Kelce hasn't looked great so far. He hasn't really gotten involved a whole lot. I don't really know what's going on with him. A lot of people online have been saying he's just been really, really slow so far. But, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're 3-0, and arguably one of your best players on your team on both sides of the ball really hasn't gotten going yet. So if Travis Kelce can really start balling out, I mean, good luck, because that's just obviously not a good, pleasant sight if you're an opposing defense when Travis Kelce can get really, really going for sure. And Patrick Mahomes, he's been good, but I don't think he's been completely great just yet. I mean, he's, that Chiefs offense, I think in the first week, they got Worthy involved. He had a couple touchdowns. But I just think it's really came down to just the execution at the end of these games. Theoretically, the Chiefs, they could be 0-3. And I'm not obviously saying the refs are obviously handing the Chiefs the game, because I hate that obviously proposition out there, because it's a win's a win. You're going to obviously have bad officiating regardless. In the NFL, there's a ton of it. So just to put it on one team specifically when you're facing them and just say that stuff happens, I just think is absolutely blasphemy. Whether you want him or not, there are finding ways to win games, and you got to give her credits due. Because if, you essentially play them at one point and there might be something that is a call or something, a little ticky-tack, this and that, you're obviously not going to be complaining about that, if you're another opposition team against the Chiefs. So, I can't really say they're getting all the calls, honestly. If you're going to essentially play against the Chiefs, you just got to play your best game. That's really it, because the Chiefs remind me, I'm not saying that they are like the Patriots in terms of like the dynasty type of teams, but they do give me that same type of vibe of like, you got to play your best overall game to beat them. The Chiefs don't really beat themselves much, and that's something that Patriots dynasty type of teams did really, really well, was they didn't beat themselves a lot. They got a really good quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. They got a really good overall offense with a ton of speed. Rashee Rice is obviously playing really well. Obviously, Worthy is obviously going to be a massively big part of their team for years to come. He's going to be a stud. Pacheco obviously is going to be out for a while, but I think their running game will still be okay. And then defensively, they still got obviously a lot of pieces there. Steve Spagnuolo is obviously a really good defensive coordinator. So this Chiefs team, and obviously you have Andy Reid a head coach. So this Chiefs team is not going to be going anywhere. For people that think that they're going to fall off, or they're obviously going to hit their patch, no doubt. They're 3-0, so obviously that really good start. But people, the first couple of weeks, theoretically, could they be 0-3? Sure, but they're not. They're 3-0, so you obviously have to say it as is. The Falcons, obviously, they had their chances at the end in this one. Bijan Robinson, 4th down and 1. I didn't know what type of play call that was from the offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. It was a stretch play when you needed 1 yard, and essentially they were playing mostly all the guys in the box, and there was no, essentially once that ball is snapped, there was no way he was getting it. They were just the defense from the Chiefs was absolutely crowding Bijan Robinson there, and just a really, really dumb play call. If you're going to go 4th and 1, I see either QB sneak it or do an option, or run it into the middle. You would at least hope maybe if it was a 4th and inch, maybe, I don't know if it was a 4th and inch, but regardless, if it was an inch, if it was a yard, more times than not, when you have a guy like Bijan Robinson, if they're stacking the box on one side in which the Chiefs were, I don't know why you're going to that side. Just doesn't make any overall sense, but that's what happened. So the Chiefs are 3-0. They play the Chargers next week. That should be a good overall game, because they usually always have great games when Herbert and Mahomes go at it. All right, so the games tonight, to recap, week 3, the Buffalo Bills against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know the Jaguars have had their success in the past with the Bills, but, they beat them in London that 1 year, and they beat them, the other Josh Allen, funny enough, from the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bills had to go to Jacksonville a couple years ago, and the Jags won. So it was a couple of games in the past that the Jags have had their number, but so far the Jacksonville Jaguars look like a massive broken mess, I guess, if you want to put it into other words. They have a ton of talent. They have Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne. Evan Ingram obviously didn't play in this one, but they have a ton of talent, and something's just not clicking with them. The first game they played, I'm trying to remember who they played in the first game, but I remember they just did not score much overall in that one. And then the second game, they really struggled against the Browns team that really has not played well so far. So that wasn't great. Oh yeah, the first game they had that really tough one against the Dolphins where they were up 17-7. And then ETN was about to go for the touchdown, and I think it was Javion Holland got the fumble recovery, and then the Dolphins came back in that one. And at the time, you're like, all right, it happened. The Jags hopefully can bounce back against a Browns team that has not looked great for the first 2 weeks. And then the Browns beat you, a really tough one. Then you had Trevor Lawrence having some comments after the second week saying we're just not playing great football at all. So, you get back week 3, it's like, all right, you really, really need a win, and you really, really have to be competitive. And man, what a goose day from Jacksonville. But also, man, does Buffalo look great. People are saying without Stephon Diggs there, Josh Allen obviously is going to not look the same guy he once was because he doesn't have a number one guy. Defensively, without Matt Milano, they're not going to be the same. And there's a ton of, I want to say doubt, but there was a ton of I don't know with this Bills team so far. But they're looking really, really good right now. And they're looking like a team that's going to be up there competing for the division when it's all said and done. The Bills, the first 2 weeks, they beat the Cardinals 34-28. And then they obviously crushed Miami. Obviously, it was an unfortunate game that Tua got down. But they defeated them 31-10. And then the Bills tonight put 47 points up. So think about this, guys. The Bills have scored in the first 3 games of Josh Allen in the offense that lost Stephon Diggs 30-plus points. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. They look like the best overall offense in the first 3 weeks of the season. Under new offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who came in last year, mid-part of the season after they fired Ken Dorsey. And they have not skipped a beat at all. Defensively, though, I think has been a surprise. The Bills, obviously, when you lose Matt Milano, he is basically your anchor of your defense, and he's a leader out there. And they just have not lost his beat. So, I knew the Bills were going to be good, but I didn't know if they're going to be great to start the year. Just kind of given that they have kind of a newer type of team when you lose Stephon Diggs and you lose Gabe Davis, but they brought some guys in. Khalil Shakir has been playing great. Curtis Samuel's been playing well. They got really good 2 tight ends and Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, and obviously James Cook is an absolute weapon to have. So they have pieces there, and obviously when you had number 17 behind center, you're going to have great seasons for that Bills team, and it just sucks that he's in my division. But he is an absolute freak, and he's playing like an MVP right now. Josh Allen is by far looking like an MVP type of quarterback. So yeah, I mean the Bills are obviously playing fantastic football, 30-plus points the first 2 weeks. They have next week. They're going to be going to Baltimore. Wow. So the Bills actually, the next 2 games, they're going to be facing some pressure in terms of some top teams in the AFC. I mean, if they could beat these 2 teams on the road, they're definitely going to be a 1 or 2 seed in the AFC, not just in the division, but for the conference. Because they go to Baltimore for Sunday Night Football next week, and then they go to Houston to take on the Texans. So the Bills have two really good games coming up against Lamar Jackson, and then you have Josh Allen and CJ Stroud. So you talk about a couple great games if you're a Bills fan. You go 3-0, and then you have two really good opponents you have coming up, but you're going to be tough. But you just talk about just, NFL quarterback play at its best. So it should be a lot of fun there. And then you had the other game tonight. You had the Commanders taking on the Bengals in Cincinnati. And all I got to say is Jaden Daniels, oh my God. Oh my God. The Commanders obviously have had awful quarterback play for years. I know that obviously they had RG3, they had Kirk Cousins. Solid, not great, but solid, right? But the Commanders are just still a really, really young team. And Dan Quinn obviously is their coach. So I don't think a lot of people are expecting the Commanders to honestly do much. They're obviously in a division that's really tough when you have the Eagles, when you have Dallas. But they've had a really good start to the season. They're 2-1. I know obviously defensively their secondary is abysmal. It's not good at all. I'll talk about the Bengals in just a little bit because there is massive panic there for sure. But Jaden Daniels, he threw guys more touchdowns tonight than picks. I mean, more touchdowns than picks, but more touchdowns than incompletions. That is insane. And he is and when you look at the stat line, the number one guy in NFL history, and you look at it like a rookie in terms of the stat line that he had. I mean, it was 21 to 23, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. I guess he was even in terms of completions and incompletions and touchdown. Regardless of the fact, like I said, my mindset, it's past midnight, so bear with me, guys. He was fantastic. 21 to 23, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. 12 carries, 39 yards. But the biggest story about this one was 2 things. The biggest playsman needed most that Washington gave Jaden Daniels the ball. He made some of the most the throws that he made were eye-popping. We obviously knew about his deep ball, how great it was in college. But when you could put it out there on prime time and people all over the world are watching you, go on the road against a team in Cincinnati has a really good defensive coordinator, Lou Amarillo. They typically have a pretty good secondary. They for the most part have a pretty decent front with Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson. I know Washington has a decent offensive line, but I don't think a lot of people expected that team to go in there. And the Commanders, folks, dropped 38 points on the Cincinnati Bengals. Wow. Now, that's all I got to say. I knew Jaden Daniels was going to be good. I really liked him, obviously, coming out of college. I mean, obviously, the Patriots were looking either at him or Drake May in the talks in terms of both of them. I think both of them are going to be great. But the Commanders have a good one. I could already tell. I know it's obviously coming out of one game tonight, but what I saw tonight is what I saw tonight. He was phenomenal. He was poised. He was smart. And he did not seem fazed. For a guy that is young like that, that's impressive. When you're a rookie, that's pretty much all that a coach wants to have in you, is to be smart, to understand the playbook, to be decisive, and he did it all the time. Terry McLaurin, you have a quarterback that can throw to you down. Because in the last couple of years, Terry McLaurin, people were wondering, give him the ball. Give him the ball. because he has so much potential. I think personally, Terry McLaurin is one of the best, most underrated receivers in the game. The thing is, he just does not get the ball enough because he hasn't had a quarterback. Hasn't had a quarterback to give him the ball and to make plays and see what he's really like. And tonight, the two best throws that he made, Jaden Daniels, a 55-yard pass to who else but Terry McLaurin, or Scary Terry now. He was Scary Terry, but I think he's going to be Scary Terry with Jaden Daniels this year. And the thing was about these two deep throws, the coverage was not even bad. I thought that there was points, and during the game that Bengals had really, really bad coverage, where Daniels was able to extend plays, obviously with his mobility and stuff like that. But these two plays specifically that were the eye-popping plays, Jaden Daniels did it all. The arm strength was something I also didn't put into effect. It's phenomenal. It gives me, I think, what Lamar Jackson, like a young Lamar Jackson, but I think even potentially better. I'm not saying he's better than Lamar Jackson. I'm not going there. But the one thing that Lamar Jackson I've seen, but I don't know if it's consistent, and I can maybe see this potentially a little bit more with Jaden Daniels, is the deep ball accuracy. That's what I saw tonight with Jaden Daniels. And I know that he's obviously going to go through growing pains. It's going to happen. When you're a rookie, it's going to happen. But you also have to give flowers there because that was incredible. If I could, I would give you guys the throws here. But there's just other stuff I need to talk about, give you guys the other content. If you guys want to take a look at that, though, send me a message. Like I said, I have my Twitter in here. Or, if you guys put a comment in here, you guys want anything specific to see about those throws, or just type in Jaden Daniels highlights on YouTube because it'll be there. So the first throw, left sideline, Scary Terry for 55 yards. By the way, folks, that was the longest play that he has made, 50-plus yards in his career. Not even in college. For all the deep throws that he made in college, none of them were more than 50 yards. Tonight, he had a 55-yard completion in that first half. And that was it was eye-popping. But then in the fourth quarter, when the game is on the line, 4th and 5, Dan Quinn decided, well, it's too far for a field goal. Essentially, the Bengals needed to stop. They were still down by 6, I think. But the Bengals defense wasn't showing any favors at all defensively tonight. That they were stopping that offense. It was also 4th and 5. Bengals going to stop there. That's far from over. I mean, but the Commanders, they get a first down, like they did. They could get a field goal, or they can go for the kill shot. And wow, did Cliff Kingsbury have balls. 4th and 5. What did he do? He went to his guy that has been trusting in the hot hand all night. Jaden Daniels, great overall pass to Zach Ertz for the first down. That was around 3 minutes, 10 seconds, up in like the fourth. Bengals still had 2 timeouts. Regardless of the fact the field goal, obviously, for the most part, it's a 2-possession game, and then it's really hard for the Bengals to come back. But like I said, I didn't think that the Commanders want to go for the field goal. They want to go for the kill shot. And here, folks, is where I'm going to talk about right now, right here. Play of game. The throw of the game. The Bengals decided to go for a cover 0. I think we're going for a blitz. And Jaden Daniels since he got hit, threw the ball around 35, 40 yards, right sideline, in stride to nobody else than Scary Terry. Touchdown, game over. And I think just he was the spotlight. And I looked at that overall division. I think the Commanders, man, they're gonna be a fun one this year. I don't think they're gonna be a playoff team because I think the Eagles and Cowboys are better. But I just look at that NFC East. Jalen Hurts has had a decent amount of struggles so far in the first 3 weeks. The Giants, Daniel Jones, 2 out of 3 weeks have been okay. Have been great, but they've been effective. Malik Neighbors has definitely gotten the ball a lot. Cowboys, defense, not great. Getting off their way slow starts. And the Commanders, they're 2-1. So, But now I have to talk about the other side. The Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, there's panic. Between the Jamar Chase situation and the last week after the game, his post-game comments saying, I hate losing, tired of it. They had really, really tough talks about him, not paying the guy. T. Higgins is obviously playing on the franchise tag this year. Trent Brown, the right tackle, he went down during the game tonight. He's more likely than not going to be done for a year or close to it. Defensively, they're not looking good at all. Their secondary's got absolutely torched. Obviously, James Daniels had a good one tonight, but yeah, the defense is not looking good for them. This was something, obviously, I think a lot of people were praising them for in the past. Neither side of the ball is getting it done. And Joe Burrow really hasn't been the issue. I know the first week against New England, against my Patriots, for his standards, he said he wasn't good. But last week and this week, it wasn't his fault. Joe Burrow's line tonight, 29 of 38, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, 6 receptions, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was essentially the breakout game. And that's what I called. I was expecting the Bengals to win that game. Because the Bengals in the last couple of years have been notorious for having slow starts. The first couple of weeks, it was a time to panic, this and that. And then you have the third week, and it's like, all right, they get a win, and then they kind of take off from there. I remember last year, the first 2 weeks, they lost. They were in the third week. They took off from there, even went into San Francisco. They won that game, and then boom. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow gets hurt in Baltimore mid part of the season. And then from there, their season's done. But people kind of coming in, including myself, were expecting, well, you have a healthy Joe Burrow. You have all these playmakers. I obviously know that they lost Joe Mixon. But when you have Jamar Chase, when you have T. Higgins, one of the best duos in the NFL, when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, you should be able to win some games. And they're just not doing it right now. I know a lot of fans have been scrutinizing their head coach, Zach Taylor. There's obviously been some blame to look at there. But, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I want to see the Bengals do well. I really want to see Joe Burrow get a Super Bowl at some point. I've really liked him in college, and the Super Bowl this year is in Louisiana at the Superdome. And where did Joe Burrow win? The national championship at the Superdome. So it would have been cool to kind of see something like that. But right now, it's not looking good. For the Bengals, it is, it's time to panic massively because they've been able to kind of, get through the overall quick early storm from the last couple of years, get themselves kind of back on track. The next 3 games the Bengals have, they're 0-3 now. This is the first time I feel like forever in Joe Burrow's tenure that he has not won a game in the first 3 games, maybe if ever. But they have the Panthers, with Andy Dalton next week, I think they're going to win that one. I think that Dalton's going to come back to earth a little bit. I mean, no way that he goes for that type of line again, right? You would think. And then they have Baltimore. So, and then they have the Giants. So, I mean, you got to be worried. You got to be worried if you're a Bengal fan because, defensively not great. I have a lot of turmoil out the field as well, too. So that is that. So when you look at it, right, that's going to conclude, by the way, NFL Week 3. We got through about an hour of that one. So, folks, at the top of the hour here, like I said, thank you guys for watching that segment on Kicking with Kruse. And before we get into baseball and the topic and obviously all the fun stuff leading into the end of the regular season for baseball, I did obviously want to get into the standings really quick for you guys. This is obviously kind of be really quick because I'm not going to get through a lot of this. I want to get into some baseball stuff as well. But you look at the AFC East so far in the first 3 weeks, the Buffalo Bills are currently leading that 3-0. Like I mentioned, the Bills are one of the hottest teams right now in the league. They've won their first 3 games, scoring 30-plus points. The New York Jets are 2-1. The Jets play against Denver next week. And like I said, they absolutely defeated my Patriots to the max last game. And then you have the Dolphins and you have the Patriots, 2 teams that are really, really injured right now. Obviously, at the quarterback position for the Patriots, they're going to continue playing Jacoby Brissett. I like this, obviously. The offensive line just has to figure things out massively. It is just a train wreck. And defensively, too, they got to play a lot better, too. They just got to be much more complimentary. That's all I ask for next game against San Francisco. Miami, when Tua goes down, it's just hard to win. It really is. When you don't have a quarterback specifically that you can trust consistently. So we'll have to see about that. AFC West, shouldn't shock anyone. Kansas City, 3-0. The Chargers, despite them losing the last game in Week 3, they're still in second at 2-1. And then Denver and the Raiders are both 1-2. Like I said, guys, it's still early, but we're going to go through it as is anyway. The Steelers are 3-0, so they are currently leading right now the division. The Ravens are 1-2, as well as the Browns. The Browns obviously don't look great. I don't think that the Browns are going to be, playing at the top of this division actually for the remainder of the year. It won't shock me if they probably went around like 7 games or 8 games. 8 games, obviously, max is kind of a ceiling from the way I see it there. Baltimore is 1-2, but I do think that Baltimore is going to get hot throughout the year. I just think they have so much talent. And then the Bengals are 0-3. I don't know about how I feel about the Bengals. I think they'll find a way to get stuff going, but I don't know. It's not great so far there. The AFC South, interesting to say the least. The Texans are 2-1, but they're beatable. I know a lot of people are saying they're kind of this unbelievable, crazy team, and they're very good. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't go too crazy yet just with the hype. I think they're good, really, really good, but I don't think that they are elite per se. I don't think there's been any team so far in the first 3 that you consider elite. And obviously, things can obviously change. Like I mentioned, it's only 3 weeks in. The Colts are 1-2, and then you have 2 winless teams in the South. You have the Titans and Jags. So that's from the AFC. The NFC, the Commanders are 2-1, tied with the Eagles at 2-1. And then you got 2 1-2 teams. You got the Cowboys and you got the Giants. One of those teams is going to be, out of the 1-2 in that case because they're facing each other. So, one team is going to stay in the basement. My early prediction is probably going to be the Giants. I think the Cowboys are going to win that one. But we'll get into the overall predictions in Week 4. I'm thinking I'm going to do a second show on Wednesday night because I didn't do a show last week. So I'm going to make up essentially this show tonight is from last week. And I'm going to do another show for this week specifically on on Wednesday. So stay in the loop for that as well. And then you look at the NFC West. The Seahawks have been fantastic, one of the best teams in not only the NFC, but in the league so far under head coach Mike McDonald. They're 3-0. Really good play from their offense and some of their defense. The Cardinals, Rams, and Niners are all at 1-2. The NFC North, the Vikings, my biggest surprise, I think the biggest surprise so far in the league. We'll see if they can keep this up, but they're playing the Packers in Lambeau next week. That should be a really, really fun game. So the Vikings are 3-0. They're currently up in the NFC North. And then you have the Lions and Packers tied for second. And then you have the Bears at 1-2. And then the AFC South, you have the Saints and Bucks at 2-1, tied at the top. And then you have the Falcons and the Panthers are behind them. So, like I said, there really is not a lot of separation whatsoever. To start, it's, even the 0-3 teams, like in the AFC South with like the Titans and the Jaguars, I know that, there's some teams out there that are 3-0. You could definitely cover some games down 3. I mean, obviously there are some teams that you can kind of see can maybe get themselves going, and then some teams that there's just no shot. Like, I don't think that the Titans, the Titans are 0-3. I don't think they're going to get on a roll whatsoever and become a contender at all. That's a team specific that's really young, and there's just a lot of bad shit going on, essentially, right? But there's a team like Cincinnati, right? They're 0-3, and people would think the sky is falling, and then when you have Joe Burrow and the defense making it get going, maybe look back at that in 9-10 weeks, and they're a playoff team. Who knows? That's the NFL. So we'll see. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to decide to do a 30-second countdown, kind of relax my voice a bit. And after this quick 30-second break, we are going to get into baseball. As is, like I mentioned, it is the last week of the regular season. And we are going to preview at least a little bit of what the playoff picture could look like as well. So, that being said, 30-second countdown right here on Kicking with Kruse, and we will be right back. And we are back. The first segment was concluded with me talking about the Week 3 recap of the NFL season. I also talked about the standings coming into the 3 weeks, and some pretenders, some contenders, and obviously praised a lot of Jaden Daniels. So if you want to get the chance to see that first segment, make sure, like I mentioned early on in the program, I'm going to have my episodes published on YouTube tonight. That's pretty much where I have most of them. But the Facebook for one of the networks current that I'm associated with, for some odd reason something's going on there, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But on the IM6 MI6 Sports Network, if you guys want to take a look at those segments, feel free to take a look at that once this episode gets published for you guys. So that's that. Okay, now we are going to get into, which my thinking is going to be the last segment of this show for tonight. Like I mentioned, it's going to be mostly heavily on football and baseball, because those really are the two sports that are going to be in the most peak at this point in time. But when October comes around, this show is one of my favorite times of the year because we get to talk about a lot of stuff. Baseball, postseason, college football. I mean, college football is kind of going on right now, but, it's still kind of early kind of in college. We'll talk a little college a little bit more in October. We're going to talk about a little hockey, basketball. So it's all coming back, folks, and I couldn't be any more excited. So, baseball, it's the last week of the regular season. We are now at this point in time that, you know, it's go time. Um, and, I was fortunate enough to be at a game yesterday night, which I bought tickets for on Saturday because I was not entirely sure if I was going to go. But I was considering about it. And I'm glad I decided to go and get a ticket. And that was the New York Mets against the Philadelphia Phillies at Citi Field. When I tell you folks that, I've been to a couple of really good games of baseball so far this year. As a Red Sox fan, I went to a total of, I think, four or five. I went to the Red Sox Orioles opening day. We got our ass kicked against Baltimore. But that was obviously great overall atmosphere. Corbin Burns pitched a really good game against us. And then I went to Sox and Yankees. That was by far the best game I went to all season. Red Sox were down 3-1, 2 outs, top 9. Who else but Masataka Yoshida? 2-run homer, tie the game. Extra innings comes around. Ceddanne Rafaela, homer. Red Sox win. Extra innings. Great game. Still can't believe they won that one too. That was like a peak Red Sox Yankees game at its finest. And probably, with the Red Sox season unfortunately coming into an end. And why not? I might as well just do a team report at this point in time now. Actually, after I'll talk about the games I want to. And then we'll get to with the teams that we know for a fact will be in the playoffs. And then pretty much once the playoff picture stuff is done, I will talk about some other stuff around the league. We also definitely have to talk about Shohei Ohtani, which for those that don't know, I have a baseball podcast on my other network, on Empty the Bench Network. The show is called Hitting for the Cycle. I have a show with my co-host Ryan Tui. Shout out to you, Ryan. You're the man. And we've gone through pretty much every single week talking baseball. You can find this stuff on YouTube, Hitting for the Cycle. I just type that word into the search bar, Empty the Bench Network. And we put on stuff every single week. And this past episode, we talked about a milestone accomplished, but nobody else. Who would have thought? Not surprised, but it was Shohei Ohtani. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the segment. But right now, I'll conclude in terms of the games I want to. So opening day at Fenway, Red Sox Orioles won. That wasn't obviously, the game itself wasn't fun, but just the environment was great. So I did enjoy that part. They also honored Tim Wakefield, of course, which was really it was emotional too. But I was just glad to be there. Red Sox, my favorite win of the season. Red Sox and Yankees, like I mentioned, Masataka Yoshida, game 10 to run home against Clay Holmes. And then Ceddanne Rafaela, extra inning, go ahead homer. The next game I went to was Red Sox and Mets. And that was not a good game. That game sucked. Tanner Houck pitch. He did not pitch well. Got rocked. That was when the Red Sox really were not playing well at all for like a good 4 or 5 weeks, essentially. They were just not playing well. And I actually did not stay for that whole entire game because I worked at the U.S. Open tennis tournament, which was by far one of my favorite things to ever work at. But I will not miss waking up at 5:30 in the morning. I will not miss that. I can tolerate being up early and stuff, but for doing it for 15 straight days, if it wasn't for the U.S. Open, I don't know if I'd be doing it. So, and even with it being the U.S. Open, it was a grind. It was a massive grind. But I will say shout out to the people at the U.S. Open. I couldn't be any more grateful. That was one of my favorite things to work possible. And we'll see if I can work that again. But regardless, because the Mets play right across from where the U.S. Open is, the Red Sox were playing the Mets in one of the series that I was essentially working in the U.S. Open tennis tournament. So all I had to do was I had to walk myself from work right across the street, walk across the street to the ballpark, and I saw the Red Sox play the Mets for a good couple innings, and it was not good from the Red Sox side, but I had to be up really early, of course, the next morning, so I wasn't able to stay for the whole game, but I didn't miss much there. So the Red Sox lost. I think it was like 7-2, 7-1. They got their ass whooped. And then I went to last night. That was by far the most loudest game. Let's say the best win that I saw was the Red Sox at Yankees. The most toughest game that I saw was probably the Red Sox and Mets game. The first game obviously was Red Sox Orioles. They lost, but it was more emotional than anything because of the Tim Wakefield tributes and stuff. But yeah, yesterday was by far the loudest game and the most crowdest game I've been at. The Mets are obviously trying to still make the playoffs. It was also their last home game of the season. So between them trying to make the playoffs and with them being their last home game this season against the Phillies too, so one of their rivals, those three things essentially made it in terms of Citi Field was buzzing. I've been in a couple Met games in the past. I know that game against the Red Sox, there was a decent crowd. It was a solid crowd. But, I mean, I was up in the 500 level, and it was a sellout. I did not see a ton of seats that weren't taken. And I mean, I was really supposed to go to see a friend of mine that works for MLB Network. Shout out to you, Colin. Down the third base line. But I couldn't even get myself down there because I was up in the 500 club and I just had a level and I had just a hard time walking the concourse. Typically, the Citi Field concourse is really, really open. You can kind of walk around and stuff, but now it's playoff baseball. And it was legitimately, even though it's still the regular season, it felt like a playoff preview, which is the reason why, as a Red Sox fan myself, I really hope that was not the last home game for the New York Mets. That was insane to be that person. And it wasn't just that. The game, it was a 2-1 final, so you're like, all right, pitchers doing this and that. You love pitchers duels. But Edwin Diaz comes in 8th inning. So he has 2 innings pitched. The Phillies had a couple of guys on in both innings. And Edwin Diaz gets out of both of them. The first one in the 8th was obviously a big one to get out. But then the 9th inning was, people were standing up. People were tense. It's what baseball really is all about. For people that are saying that baseball is a dying sport, yeah, I highly advise you to go to one of these type of games the last week of the season. Because, as a baseball fan, regardless of who you support for and you root for, that was just incredible. That was incredible. Brandon Nimmo obviously having a homer against Zach Wheeler. Fans were shaking. And Zach Wheeler pitched well. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He came back to Citi Field, and he did not get a great ovation from the fans of Queens when he departed after, I think, 7-8 innings pitched. Matt Strom came in the 8th, halfway the 8th, I think, and shut the door down there. So, just absolutely crazy scenes from that game over in Queens. And with that being said, we're going to transfer really quickly into, we'll talk about that team in Queens in a little bit because they're playing for something. But a team, unfortunately, that's not going to be playing for something is my Boston Red Sox. Another season, another year. No Red Sox baseball in October. But I will say this. The Red Sox should be proud of themselves. As a fan myself, I am proud of this team. And you could say, well, Ben, they missed the playoffs again. What are you proud about? Well, I will say this. Yes, I do agree. I am disappointed that they're going to miss it once again. They had a really good first half, and they put themselves into a position that they should have been in. You know, a team like the Detroit Tigers, who looked completely dead. They even traded away Jack Flaherty, one of their top pitchers, at the deadline. That's how dead I think a lot of people are feeling about them. And they went through at a torrid pace in the second half. And now look where they are. They're in the playoffs. So, you know, the Red Sox obviously sliding, the Twins obviously sliding, the Royals obviously not playing as well. You look at that and you're thinking to yourself, as a Red Sox fan, how are you not in this race? How, you know, but that's what happened. But like I said, I'm proud of this group. They are not going to be finishing at 78 wins this year. That's where they finished the last 2 seasons. So, round of applause there. A round of applause there from the Red Sox. There's going to be improvement. So, I will say this. Despite them not making the playoffs, right? I mean, theoretically, I think they're now 3.5 back. There's tomorrow, so that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 6 games left. Right? Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So, yeah, 6 games left. And the Red Sox won tonight. They beat Toronto, a team that's obviously not going anywhere. But what I ask from this team, theoretically, they're in it, but they're not. They essentially have to win out and have a ton of help. Team like the Mariners, the Royals, the Tigers, teams like that have to fall off a cliff in like 6 games. The Red Sox have to win out and essentially get help, and it's just not going to happen. And Rafael Devers, your best overall hitter, who I love Rafi to the max, but he was completely in pain for a good couple months. And they finally shut him down for the season. On Friday, where the Red Sox struck out 20 times. 20. That was by far the most frustrating game of the season. And they had so many frustrating games. But that was the most frustrating game. The Red Sox took 2 out of 3 for this weekend from the Minnesota Twins. They should have swept. They should have swept. The Twins gave them 2 big chances to walk it off. 2 of them. And they didn't capitalize. Then you had game 1 and game 2 because there was a rainout on Saturday. They had a doubleheader this past Sunday. So yesterday, or now, I guess 2 days ago, because it is officially Tuesday where I am. But yeah, Tristan Casas had a 3-homer game. People said that he should be traded. Think again, please. Tristan looked a lot better at the plate as of late, which is great to see. To finishing off his season strong. Trevor Story has looked a lot better at the plate. I know he's obviously had his strikeouts, still his problem there, but he's getting the ball a lot more in play. He's hitting the ball the opposite field. And his defense. They just clearly, when Trevor Story, whatever you want to say about his offense, how, mediocre it is, how disappointing it is, his defense is great at shortstop. They just miss that because when he goes down, that defense goes down, right? So, and then, you had 2 really good starts. The starting pitching has been pretty good, actually, this overall month, which is kind of frustrating to say of why they're not going to be in the playoffs. It's been more of their offense. Their offense early on this month was horrific. It was awful. And, of course, when they are out, they finally get their offense back. They score 10 runs in the 2 games on Sunday. I thought to myself, where the hell has this been? Where have you been? And now, obviously, you want to have this? This was just like last season all over again. Because I remember the same thing. They had a decent amount of meaningless wins right at the end of the season. But this year, I'm not going to say they're meaningless, to be honest. The Red Sox are game over 500. They finished the last two seasons, they were under 500. This year, just finish over 500. And you won't be in last place. You're not going to be finishing in last place this year. I'll guarantee you that. So that is a bonus. And you're also not going to be finishing with the 78 wins. So that's also a bonus. So does it suck to not be in the playoffs again? Absolutely. Was it a lost season? No. I think that you got a lot of promise from some guys. Guys like Jared Duran had a really good season. William Abreu had a really good season. Masataka Yoshida, second half, had a really good season. Rafael Devers, a decent season. I think Rafi definitely could have been better. I mean, obviously, that injury really, really hurt him from having a 40. He was on a pace to have 40 homers. But that second half specifically, he went down, and he was striking out a high rate, which is very, very unlike him. So that clearly was bothering him, that shoulder. Their pitching between Cutter Crawford and Tanner Houck, the first 2 months, they were fantastic. They definitely hit a wall like in June through August, but all in all, they had pretty good overall years. Brian Bayo, second half been good. Brian's been pitching really, really well in the second half. For the most part, I mean, he's pitching with a lot more decisiveness. His pitch mix has been a lot better. First half, he wasn't great. I mean, I know the first couple of months he was awful. For his standards, he was not good. But he's definitely give Brian a lot of credit. He's been pitching much better. The bullpen, Zach Penrod, Luis Guerrero, two young kids from AAA. They should have called these guys up a lot earlier. These guys can pitch. They've looked really, really good. I know that a lot of these games have been meaningless, but they've come in and pitched well. I think Penrod has a really good future with the team. But, yeah, and then they won tonight 4-1. Tanner Houck has looked a lot better as of late recently. A lot of the starters have been – they kind of went through a big massive roller coaster. The first couple really, really good months. Then he hit a really, really massive big patch. And they're kind of back on the upswing. But I think at this point, it's too little too late. But I don't think there's a lost season for this team. And before we get into the teams that will be in the playoffs, I will say, Red Sox, I love you. John Henry starts to figure out this offseason. And please, for the love of God, please, we need starting pitching. I can't make this any more clear. The pitching that you have is good, but we need an ace at the top if we want to get back to where you want to be. Having a decent regular season is fine. But in Boston, the Red Sox and the revenue that you have, we expect to have consistency. And the consistency that we're having right now is not good enough. It's paying cheap guys, or it's paying guys that are essentially on one-year deals that have ability. But now you have the farm that you have, right? And that was made by Chaim Bloom, so I give Chaim a lot of credit there, even though I was not the biggest Chaim guy. They have some guys coming up. And I'll do a Red Sox offseason talking a little bit, a couple months. But all I got to say is you got to pay. Pay up for some starting pitching. Because I want to be back to where these teams are going to be, transferring over to my next thing on this segment, and that is the postseason picture. So Red Sox, like I mentioned, I love you. I'll see you next year. So this week, I would say the two biggest series from both AL. Well, there's two of them specifically from the AL and NL. The NL obviously is the Mets and Braves, and I don't even think that is close. The Mets really, they need this so bad. After taking 3 or 4, excuse me, by the way, after taking 3 or 4 from Philadelphia, and actually right here, I would give you guys the postseason picture. Hold on, give me 1 sec. While I'm talking about this, I would love to give you guys the postseason picture of if it stands right now, where every team is as is. Let's see if I can put this. Okay. That way that you guys can kind of take a look at it as I go. So you guys can kind of hear me in the background, right? But this is the postseason picture for the MLB. On the AL side, if things stand, like I mentioned, the Detroit Tigers have had a phenomenal second half so far. They just went into Baltimore and they took the series from the Orioles. So right now, if things stand, that the Tigers essentially be playing playoff baseball against the Houston Astros. And the Astros are obviously playing. They still want to get the overall division, in which they didn't get to tonight. They're playing against the Mariners currently, which is a very, very good series going on over there in Houston. The Mariners, obviously, they are trying to get into the playoffs still. They are, I think, now a couple games back of that third wild card spot. So, like I mentioned, with this postseason picture, things could change. But this is obviously the postseason picture as of today. The Yankees right now are the number 1 seed. They are be playing the Baltimore Orioles starting tonight. Now specific, theoretically. All it takes for the Yankees is just 1 win, and they are the AL East division champs. There's already a ton of teams on this postseason picture list that I have right in front of you folks that are already in the playoffs and already clinched. There's already some teams that are already in the playoffs that have not clinched anything yet, but will be. So on the AL side, the Yankees are already going to be in the playoffs. Now it's the matter of they need to get the division, and more likely than not, they have 3 games to do it. So I think it's going to be basically all inevitable for the Yankees to take that AL East crown. And just essentially at this point, it's just not a matter of if not when it's going to essentially be. The Orioles, obviously, they've been falling a little bit. The Tigers just played them really, really tough the last couple of games. They've been massively a pesky team, all in all. The Tigers actually right now, folks, remind me of last year's Arizona Diamondbacks. And, we kind of talked about in the past on last year's show with this Diamondbacks team, right? The perennial favorites, at least in the postseason, right? They're not always going to be the gimmies, essentially, when you look at these matchups anymore. It's more of now in the October part of baseball, it's really the team that's coming in hot from the regular season into October play. It's sometimes you got to be a little bit of luck in terms of your side when it comes to injuries. And like I said, you just got to be hot and you just kind of have to ride out that overall wave. And then anything could happen from there. I mean, who expected the Arizona Diamondbacks to essentially go through the LA Dodgers and then to go through the Philadelphia Phillies? And they went through essentially 2 of the top teams in NL to get to the World Series. And now I know that obviously Texas really put it to them in the World Series, but to just get there. For a young team specifically that didn't have a ton of expectations to get that far, got that far. So essentially that's kind of an overall clear message of it doesn't matter how much talent you have, right? A lot of the time the talent does win, But, if you have some ability to get in and you're playing hot baseball, anything could happen. So that's just kind of one thing to kind of take a look at when you're looking at this overall postseason picture and you're looking at some of these teams. The Tigers obviously are one of those teams in the AL that you're looking at and saying to yourself, how are they in? How are two teams specifically in the AL from the AL Central side, and one of them is not the Minnesota Twins, who a lot of people were expected to be in the postseason picture. And maybe they still are. But you look at this Twins team, they've had a massively big fallout, right? I'm sorry, folks. 3 AL Central teams, because the Royals are still in it. But the Royals, they're also on a big, spin as well. They're in a massive spiral down. So it's going to be coming down to some crazy, crazy matchups, this week. And that's why essentially this segment really is headlined by the last week of the regular season. So, the Yankees-Orioles series is going to be massively crazy, right? But I do think that tomorrow or, you have Wednesday. I know Thursday is definitely the best pitching matchup in that series because you have two of the main aces in Corbin Burnes and Garrett Cole. I think by then, if the Orioles win the first 2 games, I think that obviously that last game is going to be massively crazy. Just the overall crowd there because you have just 2 guys going at it that are really good pitchers. And I think the overall series is going to be crazy as is. But when you look at just obviously the stakes of where they are, the Orioles are still trying to clinch a playoff spot, and which they definitely will. I mean, I'd be obviously stunned out of my mind, like to a T, if they miss it. But it's not happening. They're going to be a playoff team. So, and then you look at, I was talking about before, the Astros, right? The Astros just need to have one win. I think that they're going to get at least one of the wins against the Mariners in this 3-game series, right? They have Framber Valdez tomorrow pitch. I know he hasn't been great against the Mariners career-wise, but I think that regardless of the fact, they have 2 more games against the Mariners, and I think that they're going to get at least one of them. I know the Mariners, though, they're obviously going to try to play for October baseball, so they're going to be playing desperate. And at this point in time, when you are essentially facing playoff teams or teams right outside looking in, you got to give it your all at your best at this point in time. And that's why I think at this last week of the regular season, right, no matter which team that you are, you can't have a letdown, because it could be a massive impact of a game or just physically just being into the mix. And like I said, just recently in this segment, when you look at this posting picture, you just get into the dance and anything could happen. And that's why we love this game. That's why we love sports. So we'll have to see about that on the AL side of things. But like I said, the teams on the AL side as of right now, if the season ended today, like I mentioned, folks, the 7 could change. So I could definitely have next week, I could have a totally different picture. But the Tigers, a 6 seed, they'd be playing the Houston Astros as a 3rd seed, and they'd be taking on the winner of the Guardians as the 2 seed. The Royals and Orioles, right? The season ended today, like I mentioned, the postseason started today. The Royals will be playing the Royals against the Orioles. And I think that'll be a really fun matchup, too. Kind of 2 really young teams. They would be facing the winner of the Yankees. So, even if the Orioles, right, they don't win the AL East, theoretically, they could still be playing against the Yankees in the playoffs, possibly. Or the Yankees could be playing against maybe the Twins, maybe if they get back into the playoff mix. Maybe they play the Royals. The Yankees have a ton of different options of team that they're going to be playing against. But what I do know about the Yankees is they're more likely than not, they're going to win the division. As much as it hates me to say as a Red Sox fan, but they're going to do it. They're going to win the AL East. More likely than not, they're going to have home field, kind of given where they are. So that's the AL picture. Let's go to the NL picture, folks. Now, this is essentially where things get interesting, right? So the Diamondbacks and the Mets, you kind of take a look at both of those two teams. And both of those teams right now are basically neck and neck. Now, I do think that the Mets have the tiebreaker against Arizona. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the Mets and the Braves are basically the two teams battling for one of those spots for playoff bragging rights. And essentially, the Mets have two playoff teams to finish off the remainder of their season. Speaking of the other team from New York, in which I talked about the Yankees just now, I'm going to talk about the other team from New York, and that's the Mets. But I'll talk obviously about every single team, kind of looking at this mix, right? So, yeah, the Mets are obviously playing the Braves. Obviously, the Braves obviously this year, kind of given their standards, have had a pretty underwhelming season, but it's been a decent season. Right, they've had a ton of injuries. Spencer Strider, uh, Ronald Acuna obviously is being down. Matt Olson and Austin Riley kind of taking a little bit of a step back this year. So they've had a tough overall year, given kind of their standards. But they obviously have a ton of playoff experience, and they have just built for these moments. Now, this is for the Mets specifically. This series is potential revenge. For those that don't remember, the Mets had a chance to really get to the Braves in Atlanta a couple years ago against them. The Mets also did have their three main guys going too in that 3-game series, and they did not pitch great for the most part. They had Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, and Chris Bassett in that 3-game weekend series. And the Braves just absolutely took it to them the whole entire series. And that forced, I think it was that year, I'm pretty sure, that it forced the Mets to play in the wild card against the San Diego Padres for a best of 3-game series at Citi Field, in which the Mets lost 2 of those games. And they were out. Well, essentially the Mets had home field, but the Padres took 2 of 3 from them. And that was that. The Mets are eliminated. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams from the NL, it shouldn't surprise you from any of them right now currently. If the season started today, all of them specifically, I'm not surprised about right there on that picture. The Milwaukee Brewers already clinched the NL Central. Congrats to them. The Philadelphia Phillies, despite them losing 3 of 4 to the New York Mets, which I just mentioned, the Phillies just clinched the NL East last night now, specifically kind of given my standards where I am currently at the time of the year. They defeated the Chicago Cubs yesterday. So theoretically, the Phillies at this point are just playing for playoff positioning. They're trying to get home field, in which they probably will. The Dodgers already clinched a playoff spot. Their magic number for the NL West, I assume, is pretty close. I mean, they're going to do it. They're pretty much inevitably going to be NL West champs. So a lot of these teams, folks, in this postseason picture are, there's been a lot of tight races from both of these sides. But we're essentially kind of starting to see in terms of what teams are going to clinch. We're going to see some teams specifically that are going to be clinching for their own division or wild cards. And that's essentially what's going to be happening. Now, from the NL side, if things, like I said, the postseason starts today, the Diamondbacks will be playing the Brewers, which I think would be funny enough because both of those teams actually faced each other last year, if I recall, because the Diamondbacks were a wild card team. Yeah, it's because they played the Dodgers in the NLDS. They beat the Dodgers 2-3 from there, and then the Phillies, they won game 7. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. The Diamondbacks obviously didn't have enough gas for the World Series, but Yeah, I mean the Diamondbacks would be the 6th seed, right? They'd be playing. They'd have a rematch with the Brewers. The Brewers would be able to have a potential rematch of getting back to them after what the Diamondbacks did a year ago today. Well, I don't know about today, but kind of around this time of year. They would be playing the winner of the Phillies, who are the 2 seed, if the postseason starts today. I think that either match would be great. Uh, if I had to pick, I would probably go with the Diamondbacks to win over the Brewers. I know the Brewers are obviously been really good this year in the last couple of years, but something about them in the playoffs, it's just really hard to trust them. It really, really is. Um, but then you look at that other matchup, and you might have a repeat matchup of a couple of years ago with the Mets and Padres, right? Now, obviously, the Mets still, this is the week, the fate of their season. They'll be playing against, like I said, the biggest week of the Mets season with the Braves and the Brewers, but it's really the Braves. That's really their main focus because if they win one of those games, they more likely than not, at least if they win the series, they're going to be in the playoffs. But if they at least win one, that essentially the Braves specifically are playing catch up to the Mets right now. The Mets currently have 2 games up on them. And so that's why that series against the um, Phillies was so big. So yeah, I mean that's just the overall kind of postseason picture, folks. I mean, I could really just go on and on and on about this, but at the end of the day, the Mets and the Braves, those are going to be 2 of the biggest, um, the 2 biggest games this week in the postseason picture. So there you go, just kind of showing you guys there. It's going to be a lot of fun. The postseason is just the best time of year. Now you guys really might be wondering about when things are going to be starting soon, right? And the first game would start on the 1st of October. And yeah, and I just want to really quickly go kind of get you guys kind of where things are about the contender breakdown. I'm just kind of looking at this really quick on MLB.com. So the teams that have already clinched the division, there's 2 teams that have already clinched division. And like I said before, during the bracket that I showed you guys, there's still some teams that need to clinch it that will, right? More likely than not this week. Yankees will probably going to be doing against the Orioles. And the Astros definitely have a chance to do against the Mariners for the AL West crown this week as well. But the teams that haven't yet clinched the division just yet, but have clinched postseason berths, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and Phillies. Now, the Phillies, obviously, this is not up to yet because the Phillies have won the NL East. The teams in playoff position, the Astros, the Orioles, the Tigers, the Royals, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Mets. The Astros are going to win the NL West more likely than not. The Orioles are definitely going to be a playoff team for sure. They're probably going to be one of the top wildcard teams. The Tigers, like we mentioned before, they've had a very, very hot second half, and they actually brought one of their top prospects up pitching wise. So it's tough. I mean, they have the Rays and they have the White Sox in the last 2 series this week, so they should be able to make the playoffs. If they don't win these series, they don't deserve it because neither of those 2 teams right now are good teams at all. Maybe they play spoilers, so I mean they can't really take them lightly because any given day is any given day. But the Tigers should be able to make it. Royals should be able to make it, I think. I mean, despite them obviously having a very, very tough September. In the mix, the Twins, Braves, and Mariners. So the Twins and Mariners, they're essentially those 3 teams right there, right? They are playing desperate, essentially. They're playing desperate baseball. They're trying to get in. And then you have the still alive teams and that's my Red Sox, and that's the Rays. So theoretically, the teams that are, you look at it, you could say, if something mathematically with any of these teams, essentially that I just mentioned, kind of fall off a cliff, and the Rays and Red Sox like win out, and like it just completely goes haywire for a lot of these. That's what they have in there. So, yep, man. Sorry, guys, I'm starting to get a little tired here. So, before I completely go off the rails with everything else, I think for tonight that's going to be it. I think we basically got through a lot of stuff in the playoffs and in the NFL. I will say this though, I already did my team report. I did want to talk about something to finish before I go to my final thoughts, and that is Shohei Ohtani. Now, like I mentioned before on my other show, on Hitting for the Cycle on Empty Bench Network, make sure to obviously like and subscribe to that stuff as well over there. But Shohei Ohtani became the first baseball player to hit 50-50. So homers and stolen bases. And man, he put on the game that he got the 50-50 in, which was on Friday last week against the Marlins. He put on one of the best stat lines a baseball player can ever put. Because the first baseball player 50-50. Okay, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, became the first baseball player to have a 50-50 season. And I will say this, that, man, this dude is absolutely incredible. It's just really, really hard to put into words what this guy brings. And I know obviously people want to make the Aaron Judge comparisons with Shohei Ohtani. People want to do the Bobby Witt Jr. comparisons to Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. How about we just, if I know obviously if you're a Yankee fan and you're a Dodger fan, you want to obviously going to go back and forth at it on social media, go for it. I don't care. But how about we just recognize what we're watching? That's greatness. Aaron Judge a couple years ago put up 62 home runs, I think, one season. And I'm a Red Sox fan, but I also recognize greatness. And I know obviously neither Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani even won the most important thing in their career, and that's a ring. But you also can't discredit what they're doing. They're both in their primes. They're both incredibly liked, and they both match baseballs. So, and they're both transcendent. They're just absolutely out of worthy, I guess you can even call it, guys. And kids and adults and media, people go out to see guys like this play. This guy right here, I'm not going to say he's the Japanese Babe Ruth, but he's going to go down as one of the greatest to ever do it. I'm saying it right now. Shohei Ohtani, folks, taking to this, had a really, really bad first month this season. He had an interpreter that was caught for gambling problems. He didn't even pitch this season. Shohei didn't pitch. He had Tommy John surgery. So what did he do? He put up a 50 homer season with a 50 stolen base season. Who does that? I don't know the last time that's happened. Oh, wait. It's never happened. This guy's absolutely ridiculous. Every single at bat is just a must-watch TV. And I just remember going to Fenway last year to see him play. It felt like I was a kid in a candy store. I mean, I go to Fenway for me specifically. Every single time I just get chills already as is. But something about this game that I went to last year in person just felt different than any of the other ones. Because I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be Shohei Ohtani in person. And I was trying to go see him play at Yankee Stadium the same season earlier on. I don't have a dog in the fight for any of that matchup, but I wanted to just go see Shohei Ohtani play in person. And it got rained out that day. So I went to go see him play my team at Fenway. Man, I'm sorry. I'm getting extremely tired. But I saw him play 2 games back to back. Now, thankfully, the Red Sox won both of them, but he also was great. Unfortunately, he didn't hit any homers. He was actually the final out in one of the games the Red Sox won. Hit a deep fly ball to left, which I thought would have tied it. Red Sox won 2-1 that Sunday game, and they won, I think, 5-3 in the first game. 6-3, whatever. It was really good. 2 games I went to. But we're not really there to talk about that. I mean, yes, I obviously, from my personal viewpoint of him, he just draws crowds left and right. He went 6 for 6 in that game that he broke to get the 50 mark. He had 3 home runs. Shohei Ohtani right now has more than 50 home runs. He has 55. I'm going to take a look right here. I mean, he is just, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. So he had 3 home runs on September 19th. He's had 2 extras since then. So he's at 50, I think he's at 52, 53. Can he get a 60-60? There's like 6-7 games, but probably not. But he became the first baseball player ever, folks, to do this. We just got to remember that this guy is just, he's a unicorn. He's a monster. And we get to see him hopefully likely next year get to pitch again. And when he pitches and when he's doing this, it's the showtime that we know and all and love. I mean, how can you hate this man? It's really hard to not. The guy specifically is a two-way athlete. Mostly. I know this year he wasn't. And he mashes baseballs and throws smoke on the mound. We don't see that anymore. I mean, if you're elite, obviously, if like you play Little League and you're a young overall athlete, some guys obviously hit and pitch. But major leaguers, no, it doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do it for the rest of his career, but it's just so neat to see a guy like this at that magnitude putting up what he just did. And I can't just state it, and I just cannot emphasize it enough. What he did this season is going to go down as one of the best overall seasons out there. It's insane. It was absolutely insane. And he finally gets to get the spotlight also of his first playoffs. Thank God. We get to see this guy at firsthand for the playoffs. And I was telling my co-host Ryan Toohey last year when we were talking about this actual segment that I don't like the Yankees at all, but I respect them for what they've had, what they have accomplish this and that. But if for a fan that is like obviously a kind of a baseball fan that is not watching as maybe they once were, or they want to talk about it being like a dying sport, this and that, will it be peak baseball for some of those outside type of fans to watch a World Series of Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani? I mean, nothing better than that. Nothing better than that. Because you essentially have two of the most iconic figures in the league going at it. You got two of the biggest markets in baseball in New York and LA going at it. I think that would be, and you have all the star talent on both sides. You have on the Yankee side of Judge, you have Soto, you have Dominguez, you have Stanton. On the Dodgers side, you have Ohtani, you have Betts, you have Freeman, you have Kershaw, you have Yamamoto, you have guys there. Will Smith as well too for the Dodgers. So I mean that would be just peak baseball in the World Series if it came to that. But I did obviously want to quickly finish off by mentioning congrats to Shohei Ohtani on breaking the 50-50 mark and becoming the first baseball player ever to accomplish that feat. Congrats to you, man. And I don't think it'll ever be accomplished ever again. And if it's going to be accomplished again, it's going to be by the same athlete repeating himself to try to do it all over again. Which for Shohei Ohtani and what he's accomplished, at least throughout his career, I would not put anything past him. So he is just him. That's what he is. He's absolutely incredible. Okay. We're at the 2-hour mark, guys. Now, with that being said, his final thoughts. And like I mentioned early on, I know that obviously I do apologize for myself. Kind of, feeling a little sluggish in this episode. I was feeling a little more on the tired side. I mean, I can't really excuse that whatsoever. I mean, I thought the show was good, though. I had read a really good overall show. Got a lot of good overall content to you guys. Make sure to, if you guys want to take a look at this overall episode once again, or you have any comments or any other fun stuff, sorry, that ticker was wrong. This is the right one. Make sure, guys, to follow, like, comment, subscribe on the IM6 and the MI6 Sports Network on, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And also to feel free to follow me at Ben Kruse 144 on Twitter. So, that being said, thank you guys for watching. And, I will hope to have a show on Wednesday for you guys. And yeah, without further ado, this is Ben Kruse coming to you guys from Empty the Bench Network. And we will see you guys maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, like I mentioned. We'll keep you guys on the loop for that. But until next time, this has been Kruse. Have a good night.
Oh my God! Big goal to go from the two. Toss sweep one for James White. Puts it under the right arm. Puts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown and a title for the Patriots. I can't believe it. Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. 45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Puppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.